Welcome to the Voices of Power, where we bring you conversation with leaders who are transforming the future of GCC through vision, innovation, and purpose. Today's guest is a trailblazer. She holds a PhD in nutritional chemistry from King's College London, became one of the first Saudi women elected to the board of Jeddah Chamber of Commerce, and currently serves as a Vice Chairperson of Kingdom Holding, one of the most powerful investment companies in the region, led by His Highness Prince Alwaleed bin Talal. She's also known for her advocacy of women in business, her role in chairing the Khadija bint Khuwailid Center for Women in Business, and her recognition as one of the Forbes' most powerful Arab women. Dr. Lama Al-Sulaiman, welcome to the Voices of Power podcast. Lovely having you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
We'll go to your early journey. And as I explained in the introduction, you earned your PhD in nutritional chemistry from King's College London. How did your academic journey influence your leadership way, and the way that you are dealing with business problems at the moment?
Thank you again. And my academic years, I graduated first in biochemistry, which is sciences. I was inclined more to the science world at that time. And after I got a degree in biochemistry in undergrad, I worked for over 10 years in a research center. And most of my work were on diseases like blood diseases like thalassemia, sickle cell anemia. I worked on diabetes. I worked on diabetes in kids, pregnant women with diabetes, all kinds. So it made me very close to the society and their needs, because I would also work under different professors. I would be their lab technician, gather the data, work in the lab, prepare a lot of solutions, do the work, the legwork, of course, for them. And so I was exposed to many leaders myself as I worked for them. And in the science world, everything is very pragmatic, everything is clear, the steps, the process, later on, it is one of my professors that I worked for, who actually supported me and pushed me to continue my education and do my master's and my PhD. And that's how my journey started, really. It's because of where I was, and it made sense for me to continue my education.
Yeah. And as one of the Saudi women who has been elected to the Jeddah Chamber of Commerce board, what personal barriers that you have experienced yourself, and what exactly motivated you? I think we've spoken about that within the event briefly in some way.
Again, I have to explain that during my time as an employee or working in a research center, and my interaction with less privileged people and society, and understanding more the needs of society, I became very involved in philanthropic work, very involved. And I think a lot of our youth today, do that. And so it was a normal journey. So getting involved, and coming from a family that was well connected with decision makers, I found that there was a way for me to reflect the situation. And the more I reflected, and the more I tried to voice some of the pains of some of these communities, people, decision makers started listening to me. And slowly I found myself being on the board of our governor in Jeddah. At that time it was, Allah yarhamu, Prince Abdulmajid bin Abdulaziz. And very forward thinking, created this council where there were women as well as men. And we would discuss some societal challenges, and we had different other decision makers. and everybody got together. It was an amazing teamwork to find solutions for the Jeddah community.
Very interesting.
And then this took me into the Jeddah Chamber of Commerce. So, it's baby steps, but then, subhanallah, just to be in the right place at the right time, it's not always planned.
Were there any barriers?
In the beginning, there were no barriers. In the beginning of my life, seriously, my barriers were small. I didn't feel them. Working in a science world and a research center, it was all about your qualifications and the challenges that I faced later on after I went into the chamber and going through elections. Then challenges started to become clearer for me.
Let's go to your leadership at Kingdom Holding. I think Kingdom Holding is one of the most renowned global investment companies in the world, with a portfolio includes X and includes Citigroups and so on. What does your role as a vice chairperson involve on a day-to-day basis? If you can shed a bit of light on your
So
role.
first, I want to explain how I got that position, because I've been very lucky, of course, and I'm very grateful for it. So much learning. Is that, of course, throughout the journey, you tend to gather a lot of experience and knowledge. There's so much learning from people around you, the business world and everything. And then I decided to go and get a professional skill out of all that experience. And I went and I applied to INSEAD. And the journey I had in INSEAD was amazing, where they teach you how to become a board member. And I got a certification from INSEAD for board members, which explains to you exactly your roles and your responsibilities and the purpose of a board member. So once I had that skill and that qualification and certification, I then just applied to companies that would, because you don't have enough women on boards, and they're always wanted. Diversity is so important on boards. And so somebody called and they said, they were looking for somebody for the Kingdom Holding. They were looking for diversity. The Kingdom Foundation and the Kingdom Holding, His Royal Highness Prince Alwaleed is one of the few men that I met that really believe in empowering women. It's his whole business is full of highly qualified women, very supportive. And that was my chance. But at the same time, we're talking about a company that is publicly listed. So at this point, you're no more a token. Now you have a responsibility. As I said earlier, you're responsible, you're accountable.
Yes.
Because you're supervised by the CMA, which is the Capital Market Authority, and there are rules and regulations. And that becomes my job. My job, I don't have, as a board member, we meet 4 times a year. We look at the way the company is progressing. As an independent board member, I take care of the minority shareholders. That is my responsibility towards them. So you ensure that the company is stable. It's going to be one of the most important things for a shareholder is that you're going to be distributing dividends. And for that to happen, you need to make sure that the company is growing, making revenue, and everything is stable. So when you think of the strategy for a company, you have to review that. And it's very, very important to be very aware of the risks that a company can go through. There are risks, as you know, international stabilities, whether regionally or internationally. You need to constantly be well informed of what is happening.
Since we're talking about women and women leadership, and I think it was one of the dimensions of today's discussion in the event. We know that you have chaired Khadija bint Khuwailid's Center for Women in Business, which has supported thousands of women entrepreneurs in Saudi Arabia. Can you share a story of a woman entrepreneur whose journey inspired you personally?
Let me tell you what we had done at the Khadija bint Khuwailid Business Center. We had, when I came in, the business center was a small chamber of commerce that was servicing women because it was a time where segregation was very, very important in that was the environment in Saudi Arabia, segregation of both men and women. So creation of that center meant that women now could take their businesses and go to a place, because before they could not go into the chambers of commerce. So now there was a place where they go to. But when we came in, first women elected, there were two of us, me and Nashwa Tahir, and then two were appointed, so there was four of us now. So we decided to change the center's strategy, and what we did is we made the center focus on policy change. And so, and job creation. And job creation does not mean career pathways, or job creation meant what were the jobs that we could help the private sector create within the boundaries that the Ministry of Labor had, and the country and the culture was. So that was one of the most challenging parts, and this is where I met. So you're saying one story of a lady. We've met so many ladies. The way we worked was the ladies would come and complain of the challenges and the obstacles that they were facing. Once we reached, a complaint would reach, we would take it and see how many others were facing the same problem. And then we would work it as in science. We would study the case, we would see how it works everywhere else, gather the data, do an analysis, and then come up with a reasonable solution. And that's how we were able to push some of the barriers that really were not difficult to push, but no one had addressed them before.
Yeah, and I think being a female leader, you looked at it from, you managed to understand those issues clearly. And I think you had a strategic position as well to change and influence and create policies that help them, isn't it?
100%. However, I did spend 15 years in the Chamber of Commerce. I was twice elected and once appointed. And the first time elected, I was part of a slate. So it was much easier to develop the center because we had many businessmen with me on that board were the ones that initiated having women on the board. So they were the ones that worked hard at supporting the idea to now have women on the board. So when we came in, my first 4 years, I did not really feel challenges because 80% of my board was pro-women and understood that we were qualified enough to go. And each one of us 4 women had a very specific role to achieve. By the second board, which was an individual election, then the challenges came. So actually, I did not continue as a chair. We asked the Princess Adila, King Abdullah, may God rest his soul, Allah yarhamu, his daughter, we asked her to chair it, just to give it a bit of a strength, of course, socially. And she was a marvelous woman and marvelous leader at that time. And we asked one of the board members, the male board member, to speak on behalf of the center when it came to women issues instead of me. So I was not the person who was presenting the challenges. We asked a man to present them so that it made it less gender sensitive and made it more about businesses needing to grow.
Perhaps you wanted your voice to reach in the best possible way,
100%.
the best possible message.
100%.
I think you thought this is the best way because it's coming from the male.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's important to know the purpose.
Yes.
If the purpose is to actually untangle some old policies and regulation, you want to look for the most effective process or system to use to reach your purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Lama, every leader faces setbacks, and I think you faced a lot of obstacles and challenges during your rich career. Can you give us a glimpse on any of those challenges and setbacks that you faced, and how did you manage to perhaps change them into a learning experience?
All challenges become learning experience. I mean, the most difficult, I think, is being a woman. I might be easier to trigger and lose my cool. Mm-hmm. And this has always been my weakness. And so let's say we're walking into a meeting and then a security guard might look at me and say, no women are allowed here. And instead of taking it, calmly and accepting, that would really frustrate me. Because you see, it became like a yo-yo game, because as you're saying, you're at the vice chair of the chamber, you're meeting with some very high-level decision makers, but then you come to walk into a building or for a meeting, and you have the security guy who tells you women are not allowed here. And you can sit for hours explaining, and it's rules are rules, and you can't break the rules. And so these little bureaucratic pains at that time drove me out of my wits, and I would lose my cool. And I've learned through all these is how to calm down and how to be able to, be more tolerant to those that would not get it, and find better ways to maneuver through these sometimes cultural barriers.
Yeah, which is very hard sometimes to navigate, and it's tricky as well.
Yes, it's tricky. I never would be triggered when it is a regulation that is clear for all. I would be triggered when in some situation you could and in some you could not. Yeah. And that takes a lot to be able, you need maturity and you need years to be able to start yourself understanding what you can and you cannot do, even if it's not written on paper.
Very interesting. And looking at it from an educational point of view, Dr. Lama, our students, particularly business students, they look at leaders like you with that rich journey. They have accomplished a lot and have been through a lot of obstacles and managed to navigate them successfully. Any advice that you'd be able to give them, those students, helping them navigate the complex environments that they're going through?
There is a panel. I was invited at a panel. I can't remember when, many years ago, actually. And I was sitting, and I think it was a panel on entrepreneurship. And the panel became a bit, there was a decision maker with me on the panel, a local decision maker, can't remember which ministry or something. And then there was a German young man who I think was heading things like maybe either a entrepreneur training program or maybe venture capital. I can't remember, but he had to do with young entrepreneurs and startups. And I, on the panel, started complaining about policies and regulations that were obstacles to the business sector And I knew them all because, by that time, 15 years is a long time. But that time I was there 10 years or whatever. I had accumulated enough information of the obstacles that some of these ministries had for the private sector to grow. And I was just throwing them out. And then this German person looked at me and he said, one of the main characteristic of entrepreneurs is that they never give up. And they find the gap and they look for a solution and they move on.
True. Very true.
And I stopped complaining. And I understood that, just sitting and complaining and, sitting in small gathering and making yourself heard about the things you don't like is just like little kids who continuously are complaining. And, just sit down, gather the data, and find out how you can solve it and move forward.
Excellent. Dr. Lama, it's fascinating to hear all your journey from being a scientist to one of the most influential business leaders in our business world. Thank you very much for sharing your journey with us and for being here in Oman, your second country.
Thank you so much.
And we hope that we could see you again here, inshallah. To our listeners, remember, leadership is not just about titles and positions, but it's about courage to pioneer, the wisdom to adapt, and the purpose to create opportunities to others. Until next time, keep leading with vision and purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ya salam, ya salam.
Excellent.